Passover supper cleared up, the four women retire to the roof and reflect. The conversation is easy, and Mary Magdalene notes how quiet the night is and so peaceful. Look at the moon, it is full. The women agree this is a good omen for the Passover. And indeed it was, as Mary, mother of Mark, remembers, how the men seemed to enjoy it. Everything went well. But somehow it seemed different this year. Perhaps it was because it is the first time celebrating the Passover together. Mary, mother of James, speaks what the others have seen, that the women have grown so close, and the men too, and that they are all truly followers of the Master. And how difficult it was at first to accept their son's decisions to follow this man. As Salome notes, that even Peter's case, having a large family, it somehow worked out. They agreed, though, that perhaps they were the more fortunate. Permitted to follow, they could stay close and watch their sons. And they could serve well in preparing the meals, doing the cooking and the washing. Time goes by so quickly. Has it been only a few months since we first met? And look now, our lives are entwined, reflects Mary Magdalene. They marveled at the people's reception as the Master rode into the city a few days prior, welcoming him with palms and triumphant song, a joyful occasion. A new day was dawning, and it seemed as if all God's promises were coming true. The Messiah was really here and would take his throne. And what, wondered Mary, mother of Mark, would be the next happening? What will he do when he is king? Will he take over Herod's palace? I, for one, wouldn't want it. They say it is drafty, and the rooms are so large they echo. Well, the women talked about rugs and perfect locations and possibilities, and that despite the Master's never mentioning such, he will need one when he comes into his kingdom. Again, Mary Magdalene notes the quiet of the garden and muses of how it draws the Master. The women return to their conversation, but remembering now how the Master was none too kingly at the meal. It was terrible for the Master to wash the feet of all those men, and they to let him. Ah, but says Mary Magdalene, I heard him say something about a master not being greater than the servant, and that he had given us that example. Dinner did seem to have its low points, and while the women could only get snatches of the conversation when they brought in the foods, they felt an uneasiness. Salome was certain she heard him say something about leaving them, and where he was going they could not come. He was preparing a place for them, but she said, surely the Master would need the followers with him. Shaking off the uneasiness, the women reflected that probably the crowds would come to Jerusalem for the Passover. But Mary Magdalene still said, I wish I could relax. Something is going to happen. They all note and nod. The high priests hate them. Hate him. That is because they have never been able to get the better of him. Remember when he cleaned up the temple? That made the high priest furious. They were always looking for money. For the temple, they say. Which reminds me, where was Judas tonight? Asked Mary Magdalene. To that, the women, thought of him just conjured frustration. He had left early that evening sullenly. He didn't join the others in the garden. He was always about the money, always about asking people to give, and stingy with giving it. There was disdain. He has grand ideas. He thinks someday he will be chief administrator of the new kingdom. Listen! The women rushed to the edge. Sounds of shouting. Lights moving from the garden. Could it be celebrating? People celebrating none too wisely? And then Mark rushes in. Jesus has been taken prisoner, he tells them. The women huddle and tremble as the story unfolds. The men had fallen asleep. When Jesus awakened them, the soldiers had arrived, shouting and yelling, and then Judas kissed him and called him master. almost dawn. There is nothing we can do tonight. We must wait and pray. Oh, I hope Peter and some of the others are staying with him. He will surely